Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here then welcome. My name is Heather, and on this channel we like to walk a very fine line between a shopping addicted makeup monster and a responsible adult with a makeup hobby. Now I really enjoy eyeshadow singles, duochromes, multichromes, blush, highlight, lip gloss, basically everything except pressed glitter, and today I want to do my version of the Purchaser Pass tag that Samantha March and Angelica Nyqvist collabed with and posted, I believe, on Saturday. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick with me. We're getting into it right now. Alright, and I've just scooched over a little bit so I have a little space to put some pictures up, and I'm going to go back and forth between the screenshot of their questions and my answers, and hopefully put some pictures up here for you. So the first question is, what mainstream release lived up to the hype the most this year? And I would have to say two answers. I'm already cheating. So the first answer that I would say is the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette, which I actually have right here. Oh my gosh, she's so pretty. Look at that. She's so pretty. So I think, you know, when this came out, everybody like lost their mind and snatched it up really quickly, and I think the fact that it was really close to the Sephora VIB sale probably helped that. But you have these really pretty like duochrome, like blue and pinky type shades. This really weird Vaseline kind of shade has a duochrome blue flip. This one has a blue flip. This one has a blue flip. This one has kind of a fuchsia purple flip. You've got a lot of duochrome, a lot of textures being played with in here, and I think that's something that really drew a lot of people to this palette. So I think that palette got a lot of hype, and it actually like really lived up to that hype. And the other one is the Natasha Denona Retro palette, which looks like this. Oh lord, I can't get it open. There we go. And inside it looks like this. Now, I'm not sure if this one got as much hype because I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed that it didn't have any greens in it, but I'm hoping that means Natasha's going to release like a green midi palette, in which case like those kind of khaki greens and silver would be, oh, that would look so pretty. So for me, this got a lot of hype, and I really enjoyed this palette. I think it's a really nice one, and I think a lot of other people did too. So those would be my two answers for the first question. Now, the second question was, what indie release lived up to the hype the most this year? And I could not think of something that got more hype, more like people freaking out in the indie world than the Lois Cosmetics Meet Me in the Underworld palette. That palette blew up the internet. So the original Lois Cosmetics palettes that they had were just kind of like pinky, rose goldy, neutral type shades. There wasn't anything like with super pizzazz, but this palette had this really great grungy pink and green color story. It had amazing artwork on the cover. There was a brush set and sponges getting launched with this thing. People lost their mind. To ship it to the US, even with a discount code, was going to be about $50. So it's a pretty pricey palette, and a lot of people I think really enjoyed the palette once they got it. So I personally did not pick it up. It's still on my list. I might pick it up eventually. But the price has been what's slowing me down because the shipping is unbelievably expensive, and I just get so frustrated spending so much money to buy a palette and then I still have to pay shipping on top of it. I know that's kind of a petty first world problems, but it does stop me from buying some things. So, and thank God, because I buy way too much anyway. But that's what stopped me from buying this palette. So ultimately I may pick it up at some point in the future because it did get so much hype and it was so well received. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was a Colourpop release, because I feel like it's unfair to put Colourpop in the same category as indie, even though they are technically, I guess they're not, I guess they're mainstream technically because their Seed Beauty owns them, or owns their lab, but they're still kind of indie. I don't know. So I made my own category for them. And the palette that I thought was the most successful, the palette of Colourpops that I thought was the most like successful launch was the Colourpop and Limoncello palette. I think this palette got a ton of hype and was really like well-deserved hype. It has a really beautiful color story. A bunch of the shades in here have kind of a duochrome type finish. I love this kind of olivey green. I love that it's kind of a twist on a neutral color story. It's not that like orangey brown Morphe 35O type color story, but you still do get a lot of warmth. I love this pop of blue in here. very, very pretty, and the packaging is ridiculous. I think this is probably some of the prettiest packaging that Colourpop has ever done. So for me, this was the Colourpop palette that really took the world by storm. Deservedly. So now the third question is, which release did not live up to the hype? And for me, in my personal way that I do makeup, the release that got a lot of hype and didn't live up to it was the Hindash palette. So if you've not seen it, this is what it looks like. And it basically has these gradiated palette pans in the palette where you can use it as blush, you can use it as contour, you can use it as highlight, eyeshadow. But all the colors are really boring to me. They're all very muted. It's not a very interesting palette. There's no change in textures. Everything is matte. So, and it's like $75, I think. If I remember correctly, it's $75. It's a pricey palette for having very limited what you can do. Now this, for somebody who's a working makeup artist, who's working on a runway, who needs that like all matte look to just, you know, be kind of the backdrop for the clothes to stand out, or the shoes, or whatever they're modeling, it makes sense. But for the everyday user, like, clearly I am not a person that wants an all matte neutral brown eyeshadow look. Ever. That's not going to be me. I want shimmer. I want satins. I want glittery finishes that are not pressed glitters. I want all kinds of different iridescent, multi-chromes, duochromes. I want the look to be special. This palette is like the least special, like military grade blend makeup that you could come up with, and I just think it did not live up to the hype, in my opinion. Alright, what was the biggest curveball this year? Now, I was watching Angelica's video and I was trying not to fall into her answers very much, but she did mention the Colourpop and NBA collab, and I was like, yeah, that was a huge curveball. Like, where the heck did that come from? Why is it here? I don't know. But the one that I thought was the biggest curveball was Makeup Revolution's new line called Planet Revolution. And if you don't know, Makeup Revolution has about 15 different sub-brands, and they all have tons and tons and tons of releases, like 15 Colourpops happening at all times. It replicates like rabbits. And then they come out with Planet Revolution, which is supposed to be their eco-friendly line. And in my mind, and I'm sure the minds of many other makeup lovers out there, we just all thought, if you wanted to be more eco-friendly, stop making so much packaging. Stop making so many products. Like, focus on making your products better and make less of them. So for me, the biggest curveball was Makeup Revolution deciding they were going to be eco-friendly. Alright, question number 5. What is the biggest letdown or snooze fest of the year? I had a couple answers for this one. The first one was from mainstream, and that was the Fenty Bieber lip gloss. If you guys remember, this came out kind of in, like, I think February time frame, and it was a little plastic clip-on container that you could clip onto your belt like a Bieber, and you could slide your finger into it and get some lip gloss and then rub it all over your face. So instead of a much more hygienic packaging like the lip gloss tubes that they have, they went with this beeper thing that sits on your pocket in the middle of a pandemic. It just did not make any sense to me. I thought it was such a, like, boring, weird, not necessary product. So for me, that tops the mainstream list of weird stuff. In the indie side of things, the thing that I think was the biggest, like, snooze fest odd thing that was released was the Glow by Glory steak palette. I think it has another name, but it's basically this like kidney bean shaped palette that comes in a styrofoam tray like raw meat, and it has 4 colors in it, one of which is a pressed glitter, so already it's like -5 points. Then they have the audacity, okay, to put the rare shade as like a brown color and the medium shade as like a pink color, so they don't even follow the trend of like what a rare steak looks like versus what does a medium steak look like. It's like this weird animated kidney bean looking steak. The whole thing, I'm not for it. I don't know who thought making steak a theme for a palette was like the thing to do, but this was weird, it was boring, it was inaccurate, and I just, Alright, number 6 is what was the best holiday release this year? And originally I really wanted to say the Lunar Beauty Moonspell 2 because I really loved Lunar Beauty Moonspell 1. But Lunar Beauty Moonspell 2 was not as good quality. And I hate to say that because I don't think it's necessarily that they moved manufacturers from US to China. I mean, certainly that could play a role, but I think they also changed their formula somehow. It was a little bit harder to work with. It didn't blend as nicely. I just wasn't as big of a fan of it. So the holiday palette that I was or the holiday release, they're all palettes, let's be honest, I love palettes. The holiday release that I was the most excited for this year was actually this palette. This is the NYX To Me Love Me palette, and it was a Valentine's Day launch. So Valentine's Day, technically a holiday, as Angelica said, and that really got me thinking about the Halloween and the Valentine's launches are usually more exciting to me than like the Christmas launches. I don't know why that is, but probably because I love pinky purple palettes and I love grungy things, so those times fit better. But anyway, so this opens up like a little letter, which I think is absolutely adorable, and you have this beautiful color story. I love the shimmers that they picked out in here, so you don't just have neutral shimmers, you have these kind of purpley, cool toned shades. You have this really pretty kind of lilac lavender shade. You've got some nice bright pinks. You could make something that goes pretty dark because you've got a couple different dark mattes to choose from. I think this is a really pretty palette. I really enjoyed doing a lot of looks with this palette, so for me, I think this was my favorite launch of 2021 when it came to the holiday releases. Number 7 is the best collab of 2021. Oh, they must have they must have copied over the questions from last year because it still says best collab of 2020. So there were several things that I thought about in terms of best collabs, and I thought like, oh, all of my favorite YouTubers have done collabs this year. Like, how am I going to pick between Angelica's Club Nebula palette with Kaleidos, or Annette's Makeup Corner's collab with Odin's Eye where she did giant wolves? The Sydney Grace and Tim Talia trio, I mean, those palettes were like iconic. That is like history there. Tim Talia's been around forever. But I think the collab that I was the most impressed by this year was actually the Make It Black collab. So if you guys don't remember, probably back in like February, March timeframe, there were several different brands like Briogeo, Colourpop, Flower Beauty. They all came together for this Make It Black campaign, which was in support of Black creators and Black like charities and things. You know, we had a lot of evidence of police brutality, especially against minorities, and so this was kind of the beauty community's way to come together and put money and show solidarity to those types of organizations. So there were different products released by each of these brands that was done in all black packaging with black outer packaging and sold, you know, and money then went to these organizations. And I thought that was such an incredible collab. Number one, because you never see many different beauty brands all coming together. That's one thing you never see. And it was one of the only times that I've seen where the beauty community has come together to create a charitable project that has been so helpful in terms of their fellow man. You know, we occasionally see Colourpop does launches that will help with different like animal shelters. Nomad Cosmetics does a lot of charitable work with animal shelters down in their area, I believe in Texas. But this really transcended that, and it showed, you know, there's a lot of support in our community for people that are different, and we don't have those same prejudices that seem to kind of permeate other areas of the society. So I thought that was the coolest launch of the year. That was a collab. I think it's the only time I've ever seen so many brands come together, so I definitely thought it was worth making a mention. I've seen some of those products are still available, like Colourpop still has some of their Make It Black stuff available, so if you were interested and hadn't heard about this charitable organization project in the past, some of the stuff is still available, so you can definitely check it out and then, you know, use that as a contribution towards a really good cause. And then question number 8 is the makeup predictions for releases next year. So my predictions for next year is that we're going to continue to see smaller palettes, like anywhere from like 6 to 12-ish pans. That seems to be like a growing kind of interest. I think we're going to see more color stories that are between 2 and 3 colors rather than monochromatic or full-on rainbow. I think we're going to see a lot more of these like 2 and 3 different color stories, which is going to be way more interesting. I'm kind of hoping that the feathered brow trend where everything is like sticking straight up, I'm kind of hoping that goes away. I'm not a fan of that. I don't know. On me, it looks ridiculous. Some other people, like I saw this random person at the grocery store that had those brows up, no other makeup on, but the brows were like crazy up like that, and I just did not even know what to do with myself, because I was like, those brows are so up here and the lack of makeup is like down here, so it was just very jarring. I'm not a fan, so hopefully that goes away, but that's my own personal preference. I know not everybody has that same preference, and that's okay. I'm hoping for more cool toned palettes. I've really been loving all the cool toned like blue, pinky, purple type palettes that are coming out, like BH Cosmetics Passion in Paris. What else has come out this year that's been really cool toned? There's like some Juvia's Place blue palettes that have come out. There's so many, and I'm so excited to see even more cool tone stuff hit the market. And then the other thing that I'm really hoping for is more textures in palettes. So like Huda is really good at this in terms of bringing forth different types of textures, different finishes. So I think that'll be really cool to see kind of spread out through the rest of the brands in the beauty community. Alright, and with that said, I think that is everything for this video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you go, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye!